Hey crew, it's Pitt and I'm back with some more Esoterica. Today we're diving back into the works of Mr. Charles Haanel. This is the Master Key System Part 12. We are reading and discussing as we go along, reading aloud and discussing as we go along the various points that are brought to light by the text. It's not the format for everyone, but some people seem to find enjoyment in it, so you are more than welcome to tag along as we continue our exploration. Before we begin, however, if you were unfamiliar with me, any of my unconventional beliefs, or if at any point in time I step on your toes, there are several playlists linked in the corner above in the box down below, along with the original source material, so that you can get a better understanding of who I am and exactly why I say the things that I do. With that being said, we are going to go ahead and dive in and continue our exploration of the Master Key System with Part 12, which I hope will go a little bit better than Part 11 did. This part tells of numerous counterfeits and perversions by which many are led to think that something can be had for nothing. That was the entire focus of Part 11, so okay. There is no royal road to success. We must give before we can get. If we cannot give money, we must give service. We must give time and thought. The law of compensation demands an eye for an eye. That would be the law of returns, not the law of compensation. It tells how we may create the implements by which we may put into operation the laws by which we can gain access to the unlimited resources of nature. And so already we are doing better than we did in Part 11. Part 11 was a whole lot of just want it. That really set me on edge. So this one maybe is going to be a little bit of smoothing over of that, right? I don't read these ahead of time. We read these together. So hopefully this is a little bit better of an explanation. Now, when I just said that the law of compensation is actually the law of returns, there are 8 laws of creation. They are the fundamental mechanics by which karma operates and by which manifestation operates as well. And so you would be well servicing yourself to fall back and check out the 8 laws of creation. It will be linked both above and below if you're on YouTube. I don't think that happens in Rumble. But Introduction, Part 12. In the 4th paragraph, you will find the following statement. You must first have the knowledge of your power, second, the courage to dare, and third, the faith to do so. I do not understand. This is wasted words right here, right? You could have started with the 2nd paragraph and just allow that to happen. I do not understand that. Like, wasted words. Like, you could have moved the 4th paragraph up here and extrapolated upon this now. Like, why? Why? That doesn't make sense. To pad out the words, I guess. If you concentrate upon the thoughts given, if you give them your entire attention, you will find a world of meaning in each sentence, and will attract to yourself other thoughts in harmony with them, and you will soon grasp the full significance of the vital knowledge upon which you are concentrating. Knowledge does not apply itself. We as individuals must make the application, and the application consists in fertilizing the thought with a living purpose. The application of knowledge is wisdom, right? Intelligence is the ability to learn, and wisdom is the ability to take what you have learned and put it into play. That is the difference between intelligence and wisdom. The time and thought, which most persons waste in aimless effort, would accomplish wonders if properly directed in some special object in view. In order to do this, it is necessary to center your mental force upon a specific thought and hold it there, to the exclusion of all other thoughts. If you have ever looked through the focusing screen of a camera, you found that when the object was not in focus, the impression was indistinct and possibly blurred. But when the proper focus was obtained, the picture was clear and distinct. This illustrates the power of concentration. Unless you can concentrate upon the object which you have in view, you will have but a hazy, indifferent, vague, indistinct, and blurred outline of your ideal, and the results will be in accordance with your mental picture. That was the 4th paragraph, and we didn't get that, right? Or maybe it's talking about the 4th paragraph here. Okay, so You do need to visualize. Now, by visualize, I also mean conceptualize. We have hit that enough that I don't really have to here, but this might be your first video, so if this is your first video, aphantasia does exist. Some people cannot visualize anything, and this process still works for them. It is the focusing on the desire that helps to bring about the action. Now, there is necessary a expenditure, right? You can visualize all day long and nothing will change. You have to take the actual action. That is investing energy. Now, that can be prayer and meditation. That is all the energy that went into my throat, right? When I healed my throat through the use of the Holy Spirit, by the direct manipulation of the electromagnetic forces of creation, that was me investing my energy through my thoughts to move the energy where it needed to be to affect the healing. Now, I didn't do the actual healing. That was the Holy Spirit. It was me directing the thoughts to where the energy was sitting there. That is what removed the cyst from my throat. The belief that it would happen absolutely played a part, but me doing the actual work is what made it happen. You have to invest the energy. There has to be an investment or it will not return. That is the law of returns. Part 12. There is no purpose in life that cannot be best accomplished through a scientific understanding of the creative power of thought. That is partly true, right? The creative power of thought plus the investment of the energy. The power to think is common to all. I would beg to differ. Man is because he thinks. Man's power to think is infinite. Consequently, his creative power is unlimited. Now, I am being slightly facetious when I say that, but there are people who do not really think. They have the capacity, they just do not do the practical application. There are people who believe things that are patently untrue. I don't get too political on here, but one of those things is best expressed through politics. People do believe that Donald Trump said that there were very fine people on both sides and that he was talking about white supremacists, even though the very next words out of his mouth was, and I'm not talking about the white supremacists. They are not using their power to think at all. They have not gone back and watched the actual statement of 30 seconds to understand exactly what it was that he meant. That is not using your power to think. There are people who believe a wide variety of things that do not stand up to logic or deductive reasoning. That happens all the time. Doesn't mean that they don't have the power to think, it's just that they don't use that power. These particular studies are about learning to use that power, to put that power into practical application, because without the practical application, it does you no good to think random thoughts. Taking the time to learn prayer, fasting, and meditation, the proper application of these concepts will lead you to betterment in your life. It will lead you to taking correct actions if you can learn to have correct thoughts. We know that thought is building for us the thing we think of and actually bringing it nearer. Yet we find it difficult to banish fear, anxiety, or discouragement, all of which are powerful thought forces and which continually send the things we desire further away, so that it is often one step forward and two steps backwards. That is true. The only way to keep from going backwards is to keep going forwards. Eternal vigilance is the price of success. There are 3 steps, and each one is absolutely essential. You must first have the knowledge of your power. Second, the courage to dare. And third, the faith to do so. I talk often about the spiral of choice, right? Imagine life as a screw, right? And it has a slope. That's why we use the screw. And it goes around this center column and it goes up and down. You were born pretty close to the middle of that. And the decisions that you make either bring you up or down. If you are not actively choosing to walk up the power or up the spiral of choice, you are inadvertently moving down because motion is necessary. All things are moving. There is a basic harmonic in life that is in the Infinite Integrations playlist. The basic harmonics of life demand that there is always motion. And if you are not actively moving yourself up, then you are inactively walking down. Entropy is down. Not making decisions is down. Not taking the correct actions that you know need to be taken is down. You are meant to make the choice to move up. You are meant to toil and find better. You are meant to understand and learn and to do. So you do need to be doing that, right? You need the eternal vigilance, for that is the price of success. You have to invest your energy into the result that you want. It can be prayer, but it can't be only prayer. You have to invest outside, otherwise energy in that. You do have to have knowledge of it though, right? It does you no good. Like the 8 laws of creation work whether you are aware of them or not. Becoming aware of them is having knowledge of the power. Once you are aware that these 8 laws are both for karma and manifestation, then you can affect change through those 8 laws. You don't get to change those 8 laws. You get to use them for your benefit. It does take courage to dare. You do have to have the balls to spend the time to do it, right? It is an act of faith, and faith by necessity takes courage, right? If you are blindly saying a prayer, it does nothing. If you are invested in it, it does. That is having the courage to dare. That is understanding faith. That is working with faith instead of expecting faith to work without you. And then you have to have the faith to do so. That is expecting the result because you are putting in the effort, right? You have the faith that this will happen, but blind faith does nothing. With this as a basis, you can construct an ideal business, an ideal home, ideal friends, ideal environment. You are not restricted as to material or cost. Thought is omnipotent and has the power to draw on the infinite bank of primary substance for all that it requires. Infinite resources are therefore at your command. But your ideal must be sharp, clear-cut, definite. To have one ideal today and another tomorrow and a third next week means to scatter your forces and accomplish nothing. Your result will be a meaningless and chaotic combination of wasted material. This is mostly true, but keep in mind that correction is sometimes necessary. What you hold as your ideal today can be corrected by new knowledge. New knowledge that contradicts what you already believe, if it is a factual thing, should automatically make you change your ideal, right? I used to believe that people were different because they were born with different skin colors, right? That was the environment in which I was raised. I say all of the time, racism was no stranger in the home that I grew up in, but it is a stranger in the house that my children grew up in. I came to a better understanding and I changed my ideals. I do not judge people by their color anymore. Part of that was a divine experience, right? The revelatory experience that I went through showed me that God created everybody, and because God created everybody, He loves everybody exactly the same. Even if they are not in accordance with Him, He still loves them in the same way that you love your children, even when they don't act in the way that you want them to. You correct them, you discipline them, but you don't not love them. It is the same. And that is the same for every single person on the planet. That led into the Bible study where I found out that God did not have a chosen people. He can choose a person, but He doesn't really choose an entire people. That was a revelation. It was a change of ideal for me. So, you shouldn't be willy-nilly about changing your ideal. You shouldn't just go with the flow of whatever social media tells you. You should spend the time and the effort to understand your ideal. And when you understand your ideal, determine, is it a good one? If it is not a good one, then you need to change it. If it is not for the betterment, it is not a good ideal. If it is not for love and compassion, it's not a good ideal. If you are holding on to racism, you need a new ideal. So definitely change your ideals as necessary through correction. That is something that you need to onboard, right? You need to understand that on a fundamental level, you can be wrong. I hold in my heart every single day when I'm doing my prayers, I ask for correction. If I am wrong, correct me. Give me the correction and I will accept it. Now, the correction can't be, well, did you ever consider that maybe the Jewish people were chosen? Because yes, as a matter of fact, I did consider that, and I dismissed that through logic and reasoning, through reading the book. We got there through reading the book. It is the same for, well, did you ever consider that maybe Jesus was divine? Yes, I did. As a matter of fact, consider that, and I dismissed that because of the book, because of what it says in the book. Right? That is what changed those particular ideals. Be open to correction, even if it steps on your toes. It was not a pleasant experience for me to understand that I was wrong in the way I was raised. Doesn't mean that I wasn't wrong. Unfortunately, this is the result which many are securing, and the cause is self-evident. If a sculptor started out with a piece of marble and a chisel and changed his ideal every 15 minutes, what result could he expect? And why should you expect any different result in molding the greatest and most plastic of all substances, the only real substance? The result of this indecision and negative thought is often found in the loss of material wealth. Supposed independence, which required many years of toil and effort, suddenly disappears. It is often found, then, that money and property are not independence at all. On the contrary, the only independence is found to be a practical working knowledge of the creative power of thought. Now, this was an especially poignant example in his book because what had just happened just prior to this. This was 1917. Well, in 1912, we had the World War, right? The First World War. But then we had the Dust Bowl. We had the Great Depression. We had black market, right? No, Black Friday, whenever everything died, right? The stock market and the economy just kind of shit the bed. All of these things were very much in the forefront of everyone's mind. People lost homesteads that they had had since the founding of the country. People lost their livelihoods. They were starving, moving about the country, looking for an answer. And so it makes sense that this would definitely be something. If you are not acting correctly, then the repercussions are going to come. There are 8 laws of creation, and one of those laws states that you will receive in return from your intentions, right? Now, the effort that you expend is multiplied by your intentions. So if you are expending effort and you have negative intentions, then you will receive a negative multiplication. That is the removal of your property and your money. If you are expending your energy and it is positively intentioned, then you will receive a positive multiplication. These things happen according to laws, right? The squared cube law is how that works. And so this is true. This does happen like this, but it is not necessarily indecision not necessarily indecision, but negative thought definitely has a part to play. This practical working method cannot come to you until you learn that the only real power which you can have is the power to adjust yourself to divine and unchangeable principles. You cannot change the infinite, but you can come to an understanding of natural laws. The reward of this understanding is a conscious realization of your ability to adjust your thought faculties to the universal thought, which is omnipresent. Your ability to cooperate with this omnipotence will indicate the degree of success with which you meet. That is right intentions, right? That is right intentions plus right actions equaling the right outcome. That is what happens when you are constantly checking to make sure that your ideals are actually positive. Then that will be the multiplicative factor, right? So this I agree with. The reward is your understanding, right? It is a conscious realization of your ability to adjust your thought faculties to what? To the universal thought, which is God's desires. And that is always going to be light, love, growth, the best, right? It is never going to be putting down on your neighbors. It is never going to be contention or anger or strife or lust, right? Those are never going to be God's desires for you. Do you have a small bit of that in you? Absolutely. You are meant to find the balance between the virtues and vices, and so you feel the vices as much as you feel the virtues. You are to strike the balance that is God's desire. The power of thought has many counterfeits, which are more or less fascinating, but the results are harmful instead of helpful. If you are not actively in control of your thoughts, then you are probably getting them from somewhere else. Chances are it is from the tell-lie vision, which is programming you, right? It is giving you the thoughts that society thinks that you need to have, and they probably are not in alignment with your best interest. They want to keep you on the couch. They want to keep you in debt. They want to keep you as a wage slave. They want that. Does that mean that you're an actual slave? No. You can change your circumstance. It takes effort. But, yeah, there are many counterfeit thoughts. They come through most of the media. And that is not restricted just to the television. It can be on the radio, too. And definitely in social media. Of course, worry, fear, and all negative thoughts produce a crop after their kind. Those who harbor thoughts of this kind must inevitably reap exactly what they have sown. That is the law of returns in action. The pendulum will swing, y'all. Again, there are the phenomena seekers who gourmandize, I don't know that word, on the so-called proofs and demonstrations obtained at the materializing seances. They throw open their mental doors and soak themselves in the most poisonous currents which can be found in the psychic world. They do not seem to understand that it is the ability to become negative, receptive, and passive, and thus drain themselves of all their vital force, which enables them to bring about these vibratory thought forms. This one. There are phenomena seekers. Now, gourmandize, I am not sure, but it does not seem to be a positive word, right? The so-called proofs and demonstrations. And he talks about seances. That is definitely something that you probably do not want to be playing with. Dealing with spirits is not the best idea, right? I talk about it quite often. There are deceptive spirits. That is not to say that there are not positively aligned spirits. There are. There is both positive and negative. But the positive spirits are free, clear, and honest. They never cause fear or distress. The other ones, the negative spirits, can imitate that. They can make you think that they are the positive ones. That happens in seances all the time. You believe that you were talking to the spirit that passed on. Well, what most likely has happened is that spirit passed on, returned to source, and decided to come back for the next round. That happens for almost all spirits. Some spirits do get tangled here. They hold on to negative emotion. They are full of their unfulfilled desires. They have negative intentions because of the circumstances of their death. And so they cling. That is where the hauntings come from. Those are not positive spirits. If they are holding on to this mortal coil and they are not in the 6th and 7th dimensions, they are negative spirits. That is a truth. Now, the 6th and 7th are the next evolutionary steps, right? They are the guides and the messengers and the initiators. The angels and initiators are the same thing. They come for correction. One comes for guidance. They come and tell you things. And then the other one comes with a definite purpose. That is, who called down the fire upon Sodom and Gomorrah, for example. You can accidentally align yourself with negative forces. That is something to be aware of. Now, these proofs and demonstrations are just as much tied to the chemicals which open the doors, right? When he's talking about throwing open mental doors and soak themselves in poisonous currents, that is the DMT experience. That is the psilocybic experience. That is the artificially opening of the mental doors. It is tearing back the veil to the spirit realm when you are not prepared for that veil to be opened. There are forces on the other side of that veil. You are protected from them forces by that veil. When the veil is removed, you are susceptible to those forces. Whether you intend to be or not, you are open to possession at that point, right? You, walking around in normal life, are not open to possession. That is something that you have to open yourself to. Those chemicals that people use to open those doors gives implicit permission for that experience to happen. And you're more likely to accept that with that chemical in your system, right? This is not something that I say lightly. There have been people who have used these forces positively, but there is a much needed process that happens prior to that, right? I'm not saying that you cannot have a positive experience from the chemicals. It is just exceedingly unlikely. There are also the Hindu worshippers who see in the materializing phenomena which are performed by the so-called adepts a source of power, forgetting or never seeming to realize that as soon as the will is withdrawn, the forms wither, and the vibratory forces with which they are composed vanish. Now, I am not familiar with the entirety of the Hindu religion, right? I have a very general understanding, and so I am not going to deep dive into this. What I probably need to say about this, we just talked about in the last paragraph. So there are ways to open doors, and they are not always necessarily needing to be open. Telepathy, or thought transference, has received considerable attention, but as it requires a negative mental state on the part of the receiver, the practice is harmful. A thought may be sent with the intention of hearing or seeing, but it will bring the penalty attached to the inversion of the principle involved. This is an interesting one because it is a possibility. And you may not understand that because you haven't experienced it, but it is possible. Through practice and meditation, you can develop this to a point, and the warning here is a valid one. Consent is an intrinsic part of the experience. If you are doing things without the consent of the party involved, right, outside of yourself, if you are attempting to manipulate the forces of creation in any manner, and telepathy is one of those, then you are doing something intrinsically wrong. You are removing the free will from someone else. Now, if you are attempting to put your thoughts into someone else and to change their thoughts, that is intrinsically going to repercuss. There will be something that will return from that. It may not be immediately evident, but it will happen. However, it is not necessarily intrinsically bad. If there is consent between the parties, this is something that can be incredibly useful. I can call my wife. Now, I don't do it all of the time because it's a little bit weird, right? But there have been times when I have explicitly sent out the call and she has explicitly responded to that, to the point of answering the question when she shows up, right? I sent out a question and it came back and she told me. This is something that is by large, consensual. Maybe not in every instance, right? Because I didn't ask her prior to, hey, I'm going to send you a telepathic thought. But the level of trust that we have and the intentionality behind what I did is not a trying to put my thoughts into you. Consent is massively important. If you are attempting this, anything, even healing outside of consent, it will result in a negative reverberation. That is one of the 8 laws of creation. Once again, fall back and read that or watch it before you attempt any of this. Telepathy is possible. Now, do we hold conversations? No. I'm not even trying to say that. I am saying that on certain occasions, through intentionality, I have been able to project my thoughts to her. She has been able to receive those thoughts, but that doesn't mean that it is something that we practice regularly. For a variety of reasons, many of which are involved with the consent required. Hypnotism is positively dangerous to the subject as well as the operator. No one familiar with the laws governing in the mental world would think of attempting to dominate the will of another, for by so doing he will gradually but surely divest himself of his own power. And again, this comes down in large degree to consent. You can have positive results from hypnotism, but it has to be something that you are going into with the intentionality of, right? You cannot hypnotize somebody and change their thought patterns without the consent. If you do, it is going to negatively reverberate upon you, according to the 8 laws of creation. You can, however, change your own thought patterns by request. So you can go to a hypnotist and say, I would really like to quit smoking. Now, the practical application of what is happening there is you giving away your power. It still works, but you are giving that away. You are investing that energy into someone else to return to you. You can do that for yourself. Through the prayer, fasting, and meditation, you open yourself up to self-suggestion in the same way that hypnotism works. You can, by self-suggestion, remove smoking from your life. I did that without a meditative state, right? When I quit smoking, for 2 weeks prior to that, I told myself every time I lit one up, I don't want this. 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 For 2 whole weeks, every single cigarette that I smoked. And then I put them down. That was self-hypnotism. That was me doing it for myself. The consent is there intrinsically. You can give that power to someone else to return to you. That is what other people hypnotizing you does. Sometimes it can be a necessary step for self-development. If you have blocked memories, for instance, you can dig them out yourself through prayer, fasting, and meditation, or you can invest that energy into someone else and they can return it to you and help dig those memories out. It is more effective to do it for yourself. Every single time. You are giving away the power to someone else and you are opening up something that can be used negatively against you. Even if it is through a misstep, the hypnotist can misstep. They are human just as much as you are. It is much less likely for you to misstep yourself than it is for someone else to misstep for you. So this is not intrinsically dangerous in the way that it is spoken, but it is quite dangerous. You should take extreme caution before using any hypnotism from external sources. All of these perversions have their temporary satisfaction and, for some, a keen fascination. But there is an infinitely greater fascination in a true understanding of the world of power within. A power which increases with use, is permanent instead of fleeting, which not only is potent as a remedial agency to bring about the remedy for past error or results of wrong thinking, but as a prophylactic agency protecting us from all manner and form of danger, and finally is an active creative force with which we can build new conditions and new environment. And we just covered that, right? They are temporary. They do hold a fascination for some people, right? The chemicals especially, right? You get into that psilocybin loop, right? I've done psilocybin. It was a wonderful experience for me. I was prepared for it. I went into it with intentionality. I understood exactly the step I was taking. And so when that door opened, I was able to do things, right? I was manipulating fundamental things in existence. That is not the experience for everyone. Some people have a negative experience from that. In large part, the people who partake in those particular things are wanting a result, but they are wanting to cheat to get the result. You can do the unlocking of that door through prayer, fasting, and meditation. I can tell you that unequivocally, at least for psilocybin, because I have partaken. I can do the exact same thing without it. I can open that exact same door with no need for any chemical substance, right? I can prepare myself with water to do the thing that I need to do. You can do that as well. It is not something that requires you to take an outside anything. Do people do it? Yes. Do some people do it with positive results? Yes. But most don't. Most people who partake in that wind up in a negative loop, and it gets worse and their lives downgrade. That is simply the mechanics of it. It is a law of creation. The law is that thought would correlate with its object and bring forth in the material world the correspondence of the thing thought or produced in the mental world. We then discern the absolute necessity of seeing that every thought has the inherent germ of truth in order that the law of growth will bring into manifestation good. For good alone can confer any permanent power. Yeah, I don't disagree with this at all. That thought will correlate, it will attract. It is not the sole thing, right? So the energy invested in thought is a return, but it is not going to be the best return. The best return is going to be a physical thing, even if it is meditation is a physical act, right? It is sitting there intentionally doing the thing. It is not merely just thinking the thing. It is an act of which you partake. That is an investment of energy. You must invest the energy. So while the thought will correlate, it is more effective. It is allowed to return by greater returns if you are doing it correctly. So with intention, right? The intentionality makes a big, big difference. It really does. The principle which gives the thought the dynamic power to correlate with its object and therefore to master every adverse human experience is the law of attraction. No. Which is another name for love. Definitely no. This is an internal and fundamental principle, inherent in all things, in every system of philosophy, in every religion, and in every science. There is no getting away from the law of love. It is feeling that imparts vitality to thought. Feeling is desire, and desire is love. Thought impregnated with love becomes invincible. Okay, so this is another one of those yes and no's, right? The law of attraction is that like attracts like. Things of a similar nature tend to cluster. That is the law of attraction. It is not this overarching thing, which is you think the thing and it is returned in the way that it is stated. In part, yes, because, physics. But otherwise, no. It is not inherent in every philosophy. It is not inherent in every religion. It is the fundamentals of science, right? The laws of chemical attraction are different from the law of attraction, mainly through practical application. The inherent thought in the law of attraction, as stated, is a little bit different. Like will attract like, but you will attract the needed thing as a like. That is, if you are making water, then the hydrogen will attract, or the two atoms of hydrogen will attract the oxygen necessary to create that. That is the law of chemical attraction, and it just varies a little bit, right? Your thoughts and your, like, the like attracts like is more, I don't even know how to really explain it in a different way. Like will attract like is like the way that clusters of a mineral will be there, and then the edges of it aren't quite right. And it's hard to explain in a different way, right? I'm trying to, like, I've hit this so many times that I'm trying to do it in a different way, and I don't know that I can, right? Like will attract like. That is true. Your positive thoughts will attract positive. Your negative thoughts will attract negative. It is an eternal and fundamental principle. It is not dependent upon philosophy or religion. It is simply there. And that's what I'm really trying to convey. I know this little piece is a little bit wonky, but that's what I'm trying to get at, right? Not every religion has that, right? You can look at the religion based upon Satanism, for instance. That is not involved at all. They are completely off base with everything that they do. Do thou as thou wilt, same thing. Absolutely fundamentally incorrect. There are things by which the intentions matter. And as a matter of fact, everything, the intentions matter. And the returns are based upon those intentions. And so not every religion is equal. That is true. And for the most part, every religion is fundamentally flawed because they are giving away that power, right? Like we talked with hypnotism. That is a very real thing in Christianity too. You are giving away to a different individual the thing which you are required to do. You are required to give up your sin. You are required to repent from that. You can't do that through someone else. You can believe that and you can receive positive results through believing that, but it is giving away a piece of your power. Your power is your direct access to the creative spirit, to God himself. And to go through an intermediary is giving away that piece. That is a fundamental difference between what I believe and what he is stating here. Now, the law of love has got to do with the intention, right? The underlying reason that you are doing the thing. That is the multiplicative factor, so it does play a part, and you don't get away from it. That is true, but it is not stated quite correctly, right? The action is multiplied by its intent, and so that is the way that the mechanics work. Like the squared cube law is affected by the intentionality behind the action, and so the results will be multiplied by that. And if you are motivated by love, you are almost certainly going to receive a positive return. And if you are motivated by wrath, which is the other side of that, then you are going to almost certainly receive a negative return. So there is that, right? That is one of the axes between the virtues and the vices. And the balance between those is what really brings about the results. So yes, thought impregnated with love does, for the most part, become invincible, right? Now, you can be unintentionally misaligned and still act from love. So if you hold the belief that melanin makes a difference, and you are expressing the love and holding the manifestation for this person to be brought to fruition, to receive the things, and it is motivated by this, then it will be a negative return, even though you are investing the love in this one person. Hopefully that is clear enough. If not, let me know, and I will try to work out a different way to say it, right? That was a very difficult one to work through because it's so subtle, right? Some of these differences are subtle differences, but they make a difference. We find this truth emphasized wherever the power of thought is understood. The universal mind is not only intelligence, but it is substance. And this substance is the attractive force which brings electrons together by the law of attraction so that they form atoms. The atoms in turn are brought together by the same law and form molecules. Molecules take objective forms. So we find that the law of love is the creative force behind every manifestation. Not only of atoms, but of worlds, of the universe, of everything of which the imagination can form any conception. Water is not created from love, right? Salt is not created from love. It's merely created. The mineral world is not affected in the same way that we are by the intentionality. So these things do attract what they need to become, but needing to become also is guided in large part by the availability of the things. Now, the coherent bonds that are the electrical processes by which compounds and molecules are created is a little bit different than the practical application of I want this thing. That is, there's a difference there, right? This is trying to place that together when it really doesn't go together. It is the operation of this marvelous law of attraction which has caused men in all ages and all times to believe that there must be some personal being who responded to their petitions and desires and manipulated events in order to comply with their requirements. That is talking about the Sky Daddy, right? I do not conceptualize God as a Sky Daddy. He is the coordinator of coincidence. He is the fundamental electromagnetics by which all things are held together. He is every single molecule of everything everywhere. The Holy Spirit is the manifestation of that in our plane, and we can use the Holy Spirit to turn the now into the next, but that is something that you only get a small measure of control of. It is something external from yourself, and it is working for other things and not just for you. But no, I don't believe that there is some Sky Daddy out there waiting to see if you mess up so that he can burn you forever. That is not even a biblical concept. It is the combination of thought and love which forms the irresistible force called the law of attraction. That is the law of returns. All natural laws are irresistible. The law of gravitation or electricity or any other law operates with mathematical exactitude. There is no variation. It is only the channel of distribution which may be imperfect. If a bridge falls, we do not attribute the collapse to any variation of the law of gravitation. If a light fails us, we do not conclude that the laws governing electricity cannot be depended upon. And if the law of attraction seems to be imperfectly demonstrated by an inexperienced or uninformed person, we are not to conclude that the greatest and most infallible law upon which the entire system of creation depends has been suspended. We should, rather, conclude that a little more understanding of the law is required, for the same reason that a correct solution of a difficult problem in mathematics is not always readily and easily obtained. That is for the most part true, and any difficulty that I have with that has been explained already in this study. So, things are created in the mental or spiritual world before they appear in the outward act or event. By the simple process of governing our thought forces today, we help create the events which will come into our lives in the future, perhaps even tomorrow. Educated desire is the most potent means of bringing into action the law of attraction. That is mostly true, right? This is the key word, educated. That is the understanding of the actual knowledge, not just what you think it is. Man is so constituted that he must first create the tools or implements by which he gains the power to think. The mind cannot comprehend an entirely new idea until a corresponding vibratory brain cell has been prepared to receive it. This explains why it is so difficult for us to receive or appreciate an entirely new idea. We have no brain cell capable of receiving it. We are therefore incredulous. We do not believe it. That is dependent upon thinking that each individual brain cell holds the particulars, right? I don't. I think that the brain cells are in large part storage, yes, but a lot of it is got to do with your impulses, and it is the receptacle by which the spirit changes things. I don't necessarily believe that there is a singular brain cell floating around that is holding this one particular piece of knowledge. It could be. I can be corrected on that, right? I do not know that. But this, again, seems to be trying to explain something in not quite the right way. If, therefore, you have not been familiar with the omnipotence of the law of attraction and the scientific method by which it can be put into operation, or if you have not been familiar with the unlimited possibilities which it opens to those who are enabled to take advantage of the resources it offers, begin now and create the necessary brain cells which will enable you to comprehend the unlimited powers which may be yours by cooperating with natural law. This is done by concentration or attention or meditation. The intention governs the intention governs the attention. Power comes through repose. It is by concentration that deep thoughts, wise speech, and all forces of high potentiality are accomplished. It is in the silence that you get in touch with the omnipotent power of the subconscious mind from which all power is evolved. Both of these, is telling you to meditate, right? Prayer, fasting, and meditation are key components to actually manifesting. And that is what he just said without saying the word meditation. Sitting in the silence is meditating. He who desires wisdom, power, or permanent success of any kind will find it only within. It is an unfoldment. The unthinking may conclude that the silence is very simple and easily attained, but it should be remembered that only in absolute silence may one come into contact with divinity itself, may learn of the unchangeable law, and open for himself the channels by which persistent practice and concentration lead to perfection. Prayer, fasting, and meditation. Now, go to the same room, take the same chair, the same position as heretofore. Be sure to relax, let go, both mentally and physically. Always do this. Never try to do any mental work under pressure. See that there are no tense muscles or nerves, that you are entirely comfortable. Now, realize your unity with omnipotence. Get into touch with this power. Come into a deep and vital understanding, appreciation, and realization of the fact that your ability to think is your ability to act upon the universal mind and bring it into manifestation. Realize that you will meet any and every requirement, that you have exactly the same potential ability which any individual ever did have or ever will have, because each is but an expression or manifestation of the one. All are parts of the whole. There is no difference in kind or quality, the only difference being one of degree. That's what we have been talking about this entire time. Anything I can do, you can do better. You can do everything better than me. Right? Anything that is possible for me, I have to assume that it is possible for you too. There are things which set me apart. I am left-handed. That is 3% of the population. I have aphantasia. That is another 3% or less of the population. These are things that make me different. That doesn't mean that it is exclusive, but it might be, right? I may not have the knowledge to ascertain that. But as far as I know, it only sets me apart in minor ways. It does not mean that you can't meditate. It does not mean that you cannot pray. It does not mean that you cannot fast. That is the 3 tools that I use for everything that I have done. Prayer, fasting, and meditation. Now, a lot of what he has talked about here has to do with meditating, right? You pray, that is the active part, that is giving your gratitude, which should be the first part. It is stating your needs and the things which you require, at least to your understanding. fasting allows you to hear a little bit better. It is one of those things that simply works. I don't know why, the mechanics are beyond me, but it works. When I didn't fast, I did not get results. When I started fasting, I did. Therefore, I tell you to do it. Meditation is the quieting of your thoughts. It is not you going on, right? It is not even you really paying attention to the breath. But when you get to the point where you are no longer paying attention to the breath and you are no longer thinking conscious thoughts, that is the meditative state. It is the removal of your conscious mind. It is allowing whatever that idea is to come in unadulterated so that you can understand it unadulterated. That is the process by which was revealed to me the 8 laws of creation. It was the process which revealed to me the changing of the MBTI system. It was the part that brought me to the understanding of manipulating through the chakras. Right? All of the things that I talk about to you came through prayer, fasting, and meditation. That was a direct revelation to me. I have to believe that it can be to you as well. And so that is why I say that all of the time. Anything I can do, you can do better. I have to assume that. I don't believe that I am special in this. I merely take the time. I put in the work. I expend my energy towards that goal, couched in love every time, right? I am seeking God's will. God's will is love. I am seeking the betterment of humanity. That is love. I am seeking not to impose my will upon the betterment of humanity, but to have revealed to me the things which will bring about God's will for the betterment of humanity. That is the intentionality that I go into my prayer, fasting, and meditation with. There are more, but it is long to talk about. And so if you are in accordance with the 8 laws of creation before you begin the process, then the process will work for you. I have to assume that. Part 12, questions. How may any purpose in life be best accomplished? Through a scientific understanding of the spiritual nature of thought. That is why I have the MBTI system, right? A better scientific understanding of the nature of thought. Now, spiritual nature of thought is an addition, but yeah, you as a spiritual being having a physical experience do have spiritual thoughts. So yeah. And to my best effort, the MBTI system helps to differentiate the different patterns of thought so that you can better understand your thoughts, right? It can be used externally. I have typed other people and they've been like, wow, right? It helped to change their lives. And not just one instance, several instances. It is a underlying understanding of why the thoughts happen the way they do. It is based upon science to the best of my ability. And so that is the reason why I have that. It is through a scientific understanding of the spiritual nature of thought. The prayer, fasting, and meditation revelations, that is part of it. What 3 steps are absolutely essential? The knowledge of our power, the courage to dare, and the faith to do so. How is the practical working knowledge secured? By understanding of natural laws. What is the reward of an understanding of these laws? A conscious realization of your ability to adjust ourselves to divine and unchanging principle. What will indicate the degree of success with which we meet? The degree in which we realize that we cannot change the infinite, but must cooperate with it. Yeah. What is the principle which gives thought its dynamic power? The law of attraction, which rests on vibration, which in turn rests upon the law of love. Thought impregnated with love becomes invincible. Why is this law irresistible? Because it is a natural law. All natural laws are irresistible and unchangeable and act with mathematical exactitude. There is no deviation or variation. See again the 8 laws of creation. Why then does it sometimes seem to be difficult to find the solution to our problems in life? For the same reason that it is sometimes difficult to find the correct solution to a difficult mathematical problem. The operator is uninformed or inexperienced. Why is it impossible for the mind to grasp an entirely new idea? We have no corresponding vibratory brain cell capable of receiving the idea. And again, I have been presented with new ideas and had the immediate ability to grasp them. Not every time. There are some that I had to work my mind around. There are some that you have to assimilate. But sometimes it is something that happens right away. And so it's not dependent upon a brain cell being dedicated to it. I really do have some problem with that. I don't know why it sticks in my craw so much, but it definitely does. How is wisdom secured? By concentration. It is unfoldment. It comes from within. That is meditation. Thought cannot conceive of anything that may not be brought into expression. He who first uttered it may be only the suggester, but the doer will appear. Wilson. We are not going to do the advice. We have done it several times already, and it's the same thing over and over again. So that is going to bring us to an end of part 12. I think we're on 12. Hopefully I brought a little bit of enlightenment and not too much confusion to a series of somewhat difficult topics. I understand that I hold some unconventional beliefs, and I have a tendency to step on toes when I relay that. It is not intentional, but I do not apologize for it. I am here to reveal as well as I can, as clearly and as plainly as I can, the steps by which I have achieved manifestation. I have manifested healing within myself through the power of God. Don't get it twisted, but I made the decisions. I invested the energy. I put in the work. I did the prayer, fasting, and meditation. I did the moving of the energy through the stack. I made it sit there. I permeated my being with it. I took the steps. I am relaying to you my best understanding of those steps. These texts, as we read along, bring to light the various points that make me able to express that to you. I'm not very good at just sitting down and giving the explanation without a point of reference. And so that's why we're doing this. I'm going to hold contention with several points, but that doesn't mean that I am correct every time. It is to the best of my understanding. It is fully intentioned with love and for the betterment of all humanity, but I can be wrong just as well as anyone else can. I try to hold that thought in my mind, even when it seems like I am firmly confident in the things in which I tell you. Most of the time, I will let you know that it is a possibility and that there are other possibilities. There are other ways to get on this narrow road. But this is the gate that I have used. This is the gate that has led me to the still waters. This is the point that allowed me to change my life in a myriad of ways. And I'm merely trying to relay that to you. If you like what I'm doing over here, let me know down below. Give me a like, share, and a sub. Throw me a comment if you agree or disagree. If it remains respectful, it gets to remain up. And if there is another work that you would like to see me work through in the manner that we are doing here, let me know in the comments as well. If you really like what I'm doing over here, hit me with that super thanks. To the crew, thanks for hanging out. I appreciate every single minute that you were here with me, and I am praying for you every single day. Until next time, I love you. God loves you. You are perfect, whole, and complete, just the way that you are. And this has been Pitt's Take. Peace.